Lachlan from Angel Aid. I'm the founder and CEO, and I'm here with Elissa Epel. She's a dear friend and one of the preeminent researchers in stress. So welcome, Elissa.
Thank you, Crystal. So happy to be here with you.
So great. So Elissa, will you please describe your role here at UCSF?
I am a professor in the Department of Psychiatry, and I do research on stress and the mind-body connection. Any things that cause stress from our personal lives or communally or globally, and again, the things that reduce stress, both environmentally and socially, and in our mind, how we can regulate our own stress.
Amazing, amazing. And you know, Elissa came to mind. I met her through her book, her first book, The Telomere Effect. So can you tell our audience about that?
So this book represented over a decade of research with my colleagues on how we can slow our biological aging, and of course what speeds it up. And this was, I co-wrote this with my colleague Elizabeth Blackburn, who is a Nobel laureate, who helped discover the whole cell aging system of telomeres and the anti-aging enzyme telomerase. And so we go through the different factors that both biologically and behaviorally and psychologically that affect our aging and can really control, to some extent, our rate of aging. So telomeres are these caps at the ends of chromosomes that help protect our chromosomes, but they also regulate really the life of the cell. So when they get too short or worn out, the cell dies and can't keep replicating and keeping cells fresh.
This is really good news that we can affect our telomeres. We can actually, through stress reduction techniques, improve the outcomes. Can you talk about that? What's the impact of stress on the body?
So we now know that when we experience pretty severe stress during childhood, that leaves a lifelong imprint on our telomeres, and we end up in adulthood with shorter telomeres and thus greater risk for early disease. But the good news is that almost every lifestyle factor that we've studied, whole food diet, physical fitness, sleep, and stress, are associated with longer telomeres. And in some of our trials, it looks like we can also lengthen or we can create conditions to protect our telomeres so that they shorten more slowly. So we have a malleable aging system, and the good news is that things that we do each day add up over time and protect our telomeres, as well as all the other cell aging machinery in the cell. So there's a lot of different ways that we age: inflammation, epigenetics, mitochondria, and it's all really one system. They're all talking to each other. When we flood our system with stress hormones and other factors like oxidative stress from our lifestyle, from our psychological stress, these aging mechanisms can wear out. They can't take too much stress over too many months or years. And so, for example, our mitochondria enzymes get weaker. Our little engines in our cells that make energy, our mitochondria, tend to be less effective, and so they give out less energy and more free radicals. So we don't want that.
No, we don't. And there's so many stressors in our life that we can't control sometimes. In our community, in the rare disease community, it's the chronic stress of caregiving. So can you talk a little bit about chronic stress and that impact and what our community can do to reduce those impacts?
It is sadly to say, when we want to study chronic stress, we go to caregivers in our field because it's such a challenging lifestyle. Caregiving means that you're on 24/7, and if you think of stress as like the waves, things that happen to us, and then there's time in between the waves to recover, to have restoration, to not feel threat or to worry. Caregivers don't have a really good lull between waves because they're always needing to be vigilant. They're always needing their phone on. They're needing to listen to see if their loved one needs help. And so there's less respite and restoration, which makes it so much more important for caregivers to consciously and effortfully create the breaks, true breaks, create restoration, create time when you can turn off your phone, when you can have a nap, when you can let people know that you're off duty. And there are other ways that we can promote these restorative breaks with actually bursts of acute stress. So not all stress is bad. It's the chronic stress that we want to break up. But the acute stress, when we control it and when we bring it on in healthy ways, actually helps our body reset the stress aging calibration so that we are burning up and metabolizing stress hormones and extra glucose in our body, and we're actually cleaning up the cells when we do something like exercise or something that takes a lot of the body's stress response, like repeated sauna, repeated cold showers. Those are all really good tools to have in your daily repertoire.
Fantastic. And I first had the opportunity to hear some of these tools from Elissa. We did a stress reduction program for BioMarin, and it was employees actually dealing with stress at work. And so some of these techniques you outlined for the employees. Can you talk a little bit about stress at work? Because so many of us have that.
Yes, we spend so much time at work, and it's so important to work together to create a healthy work culture. The culture of work is often the culture of stress, and we want it to be a culture of health. We want work to enhance our health and purpose and not detract from it. And so it's really a communal task to ask, how can we in our work group have a healthy culture that promotes the positive aspects of stress. We work together on deadlines, we support each other, we show gratitude for each other, rather than competition, criticism, ways that just keep our threat system alive and vigilant, even when we sleep. So we've tried hard, for example, at my workplace, to kind of put boundaries on emails, for example, and meeting times. So we use our email timer to send messages after hours. We try to end meetings, all meetings, at 10 minutes before the hour, or of course start 10 minutes later, because we all knew from the Zoom lifestyle during the pandemic how easy and how quickly we can feel burnout when we don't have those breaks.
Yes, absolutely. And part of why we're having this discussion and why we're so grateful and excited to partner with Microsoft and Horizon and Sanofi and EMD Serono and PTC Therapeutics and so many of our corporate sponsors is to share these tools and techniques with the employees and with all of the families that are the beneficiaries of our hard work as well. So, so I thank you for outlining those. And you have a book. You have a new book that, in fact, it's right here. You have a new book, The Stress Prescription. So 7 Days to More Joy and Ease by Elissa Epel. Elissa, thank you so much for your time today. Is there any parting thoughts or things that we should be thinking about as we go back into our home and work life?
Well, let me mention a few things from the book. The reason I wrote the book is that we all feel too much stress. It is epidemic. It is, in national surveys, the majority of people are feeling overwhelmed, particularly young adults. And so we don't have to live that way. It's like we're so on autopilot and blind to the fact that we're spending most of our life rushing, preoccupied, just keeping our nervous system on high. And so this book gives us ways to recognize that mindset that we have of holding on to worries, even unconsciously, and really letting ourselves release them. So there are many different ways, and the goal is to find a way that works for you. We can reduce feelings of stress within minutes. And we can do that with breathing, with mindful check-ins, with sensory immersion, with being in nature, and some of these more positive stressors that we were talking about. And it doesn't take rocket science to try to add these to your day and see how it affects you. So we all need to find at least 1 or 2 ways that we can go from 6 or 7 that we could just spend all day and feeling almost at the top of our stress scale, down to getting down to 4 or 3. And those breaks are just critical for our mental health and our physical health. Now, when you and I were teaching together, you focused on the sensory strategies, and that's brilliant, Crystal, because what we're learning from the neuroscience of stress is that stress makes us cut off from our body and our senses, right? We're just in our head, from our neck up, and it's so easy to keep the stress response system on all day, don't even know it's on. We sleep worse, and we don't connect with people as well. And when we allow ourselves to feel our senses, to pay attention to the body's sensations, or to looking at a beautiful view, feeling any material, petting a furry pet, these actually shift the brain activity away from the stress response and more toward this world of experiencing things. We're reminding ourselves we have this whole body with this nervous system. So like this, even just like noticing the natural world, feeling it, touching it, appreciating it, that is one of the shifts that has been studied and actually works to change brain waves and reduce some of the nervous system stress arousal.
Oh gosh, stepping down, stepping in, noticing, being aware, and also being witnessed. Thank you for mentioning the work that we did together, because it tied in and informed our Caregivers emotional journey map. Our Caregivers emotional journey map is actually one of the tools that we use to witness the emotions that we're feeling as we go through this caregiving experience. So caregivers.global, and you can download the emotional journey map while you're there. Elissa, thank you for your time. Thank you for your love and your energy that you put towards bringing peace and relief into our community. And I have one last question, because we're asking everybody. What do you do for self-care? What's your moment that you take back for yourself?
It's a good question. So I do try to take mindful moments between tasks, from transitioning from one place to another. I really love to have present connections with people when I can stop looking at my phone and just really be present for the person in front of me. And regardless of like the content, it just makes work so much more meaningful to actually see how someone is and connect with them instead of just a purely transactional interaction. When we might not even be present, we're just kind of in our automatic mode. And so that makes work more joyful, to actually really celebrate the team and people we're with and check in with them and ask how they are. So one of the things that I do sometimes, not always, but this morning I had just an untenable to-do list. This was what I was looking forward to in my day, but I have other deadlines that I probably won't meet. And so it was one of those mornings where I woke up with, just tons of adrenaline and excess anxiety. And then I looked at my phone, and of course it made it all worse. And so I did something that was high intensity interval training, just on a bike, and a few minutes of yoga. And like, I really felt myself burning off excess energy. And so yes, we want to schedule an exercise and be regular for fitness, but what I was doing was called stress fitness. I was like using physical activity to reset my nervous system, and it works pretty well. So it's kind of a just in time or as needed intervention.
So Elissa, one of the things that we've talked deeply about is the chronic stress in the family life, in the caregiving role. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so many of us are caregivers in different ways. So being a caregiver of a child with a rare condition has its own incredibly unique stressors. Having Angel Aid and other parents who understand that unique experience is incredibly important. Being with people who understand or have gone through the unique type of trauma or chronic stress that you have gone through is one of the most healing things we can do. We're these social animals, and that deep understanding and empathy without you having to explain yourself is incredible. So the types of stress, so caregiving is caring for others emotionally as well as with what we do, is really high intensity, and it can easily lead to emotional burnout. And so there are many types of work that also has that kind of a strain, and that is having service jobs. And so when you're dealing with people all day, when you're trying to meet their needs and listen, this happens in healthcare professions, mental health professions, teaching, as well as parenting, any type of parenting, right? We know that parenting is stressful even with neurotypical kids. There is this level of emotional strain that can turn into burnout. So not only might you feel physical exhaustion, but you feel emotional exhaustion. And so it's a kind of stress that needs its own care and attention to recognize this is merits and requires extreme self-care and restoration. But we just don't do that in our society. So I like to talk about deep rest as an example of something that is a precious resource that our body needs and deserves. And many of us never get it. Deep rest happens when we're doing something consciously and intentionally to deeply let go and relax while we're awake. Mm-hmm. Deep sleep is good, but deep rest while we're awake is also great. So getting there might be doing something that is a mind-body activity that's restorative. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, massage. There's all sorts of sound baths and, guided audios like Yoga Nidra. There's a lot of choices. Mm-hmm. And doing that at least once a week is a wonderful way to condition your body to it and introduce it. And of course, doing it more frequently is really important for caregivers.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things that we hear so often in our community. Wait, there's a resource for me? It's not all about my loved one. There's something for me, and that's what Angel Aid is all about, is a resource for you and all others that may have an interest in sharing their feelings about these experiences. So thank you very much for that, Elissa.
Thank you.